So good morning, everyone. Good morning, class. I hope you are doing well. So today we will now be proceeding to the next chapter, which is the sociological view of the self. Specifically, for today, we will be discussing about the self as a product of modern society, among other constructions. So we will now know the perspective of sociology in the context of understanding ourselves more. Okay. Now, first, let's try to define what is sociology. Now, sociology is the study of human social relationships and institutions. Sociology's subject matter is diverse, so different, okay? Ranging from crime to religion, from the family to the state, from the divisions of race and social class to the shared beliefs of a common culture, and from social stability to radical change in whole societies. So here, sociology is trying to unify a whole lot of elements that involves people and group of people, okay, and individual also. Now here, unifying the study of these diverse subjects of study is sociology's purpose of understanding how human action and consciousness both shape and are shaped by surrounding cultural and social structures. Meaning, a lot of factors are trying to collide and trying to affect each other. Okay. And that is the aim of sociology. They are trying to interpret, describe, and even explain how the society is being shaped by an individual, and return, how does society influence an individual. Okay. Now, here, furthermore, sociology posits that socially formed norms, beliefs, and values come to exist within the person to a degree where these become natural and normal, thus developing the person's self identity. Now, here, this includes habits and the way we interact each other, even our expressions. Okay, so these elements, these things cause an impact towards developing our self-identity. Okay. So here, in the perspective of sociology, guys, we are the product of social interaction. Okay. Okay. Now here, modernization has significantly changed society, and this has affected how an individual builds and develops his or her self-identity. Okay. But first, let's try to know the difference of how people lived during the pre-modern society before we move to the modern society. Okay. Now, pre-modern society was centered on survival. Okay. To kill or be killed. Okay. We have to thrive in order to survive. We have to be skillful enough, kumbaga. Okay. Nandyan yung motivation na survival of the fittest. Kasi kung hindi, talo ka, mamamatay ka. Okay? Now, furthermore, people behaved according to social rules and traditions, while the family and the immediate environment provided supervision on how to get through life. Okay, isa-isahin muna natin. Now, behave according to social rules. For example, like caste systems, guys, that exist in India. Dati, I'm not really sure if it is still existing in the modern day India. But caste systems categorized people into slaves, farmers, nobles, and high ranking men. Okay? Now, if ever you will try to go against the trend or the rules of the community you belong to, the community will have the right to penalize you. Okay? Now, here, if you show a certain behavior that is different from the role that was expected to you or expected of you or the role that was assigned to you, kumbaga, you'll be banished. Okay? My great probability, there's a great chance na you'll be exiled. Hindi ka na makakabalik sa tirahan mo. Okay? Partly because of how rigid, okay, how rigid the traditional norms of the pre-modern society. Okay. Kasi dati, they couldn't tolerate differences. More of like, there's an essential emphasis, a vital emphasis on social conformity. You have to obey in order to survive. You have to obey and behave based on the role that was assigned to you. Okay. Second statement, family provides supervision. So, for example, in the pre-modern society, the privileges that you enjoy, the opportunities that you can get was based on the status of your family. For example, you belong to a noble family. Of course, there's a lot of opportunities for you. Okay? You can even choose your profession. You can even choose who to marry. Okay? In a sea of people, in a crowd. Okay? So if you are a fan of watching medieval movies, diba, yung mga nobles, they get to have parties wherein they can survey or they can have a lot of women na pwede nila maging prospect na maging wife. Okay? So, on the other hand, if you belong to a family that lacks certain powers and privileges, of course, very limiting. Okay? Very limiting ang society. So, more of like, freedom is limited. So, freedom is limited in the pre-modern society kasi nga, grabe ang emphasis sa social conformity. You have to obey to the rules. And freedom is limited because predetermined na ang destiny ng tao. Okay? So, predetermined na. So, naka-establish na siya kung ano ang mangyayari sa'yo based sa color ng skin mo, based on your gender, based on the status of your family, based on the country that you come from. Okay? And all you had to do back then in the pre-modern society is to adhere to the rules assigned to you, okay, by the community. Now here, furthermore, choosing where to live, what line of work to do, and even who to marry was very limited. Kasi very traditional sila and they are not prone to changes or revisions. Kung may mga rules man sila, hindi masyado nare-revise. Kasi they couldn't handle so much adjustments and they are not comfortable for change back then in the pre-modern society, but still they were able to survive. So what are the types of pre-modern societies na nag-exist? First one, we have pastoral society. So pastoral society is made up of pastoralists. So people whose lives center on tending the land and caring for herds of animals such as goats, camels, or cattle. Now, these kind of society rely on animals for food. So they depend on animals for food and sustenance. The second example of a pre-modern society is feudal society. So if you're watching Game of Thrones and other medieval movies or books, you're reading medieval books, feudal society is where my landlord and tenant, where the tenant will give profits, okay, in the form of crops or any produce that they were able to gain. For example, if ever may tanim sila, ibibigay nila sa landlord nila. In exchange, the landlord will protect his people from outside threats. Yun. So and as time goes by, yung feudal society, nagkaroon din siya ng monarchy. Doon din siya nag-start, kumbaga, yung monarchy. So let's move to the modern times. Now, modernization, however, has improved people's living conditions. Diba? Kasi nga, nagkaroon na ng advancement. Now, a person in the modern society is free to choose where to live. So, kung sa pre-modern society, very limited ang freedom of movement ng tao, in the modern society, we have the right to choose. Okay? We have the right to choose where to live, what to do with our lives, and who to be with. However, stability has also decreased as traditions and traditional support systems like family have decreased in importance. Okay, traditional support systems that pertains to family, to friends or relatives. Okay, so here, Giddens exemplified that family as one of the traditional support systems, nag-decrease na yung importance niya. Hindi na siya ganun ka essential sa life ng isang individual. Okay. During or in the modern society. Now, in modern societies, individualism is dominant and developing one's self-identity is central. So here, from the pre-modern society where there is a great emphasis on social conformity, obedience talaga, dito naman sa modern society, nandun na yung individualism. Okay? Nandun na yung striving for being unique. Okay? And individualism here promotes competition. So kung sa pre-modern society, strength in numbers, dito naman sa individualism na nag-i-exist sa modern times, everyone is out for themselves. Okay? So parang nagkakaroon ng competition. Everyone is trying to outshine each other. So ganun ka-competitive ang modern society. Right? Now here, there have been a lot of changes from how we used to live. Okay? Modernization was able to expand the horizons of every individual to endless possibilities, endless opportunities. Kasi may freedom of movement na. You can just go to wherever place that you want to visit kasi may visa naman, may passport naman. Diba? Now, we can already conclude that in a modern society, it is no longer limiting. No? Hindi na siya rigid, kumbaga. It is no longer rigid for people to decide how they will live their lives. So, ganun lang siya ka dali, guys. So, if I can just add further about this one, the difference of pre-modern and modern society where individualism is dominant, ang pinopoint out lang ni Giddens dito, guys, is that we used to be family-oriented. Okay? I am not saying wala na yan ngayon. But, grabe yung emphasis in reaching for a consensus whenever we try to decide for our actions. That includes asking permissions from our parents, consulting our parents first before reacting or making a decision. Kasi sa individualism in the modern times, you can just be independent. Dun ka lang mag-a-approach sa parents pag nagawa mo na. Okay? Kasi nga, it is your life. Okay? No one will be able to tell you what to do. Yun yung mga ideas ng individualism. Okay. So I hope you have your Sims with you. Let's move to the key characteristics of modernity according to Giddens. Now, according to Giddens, the most patent major characteristics of modernity are first, industrialism. Okay. So nandiyan yung picture, di ba? So from my assembly line, my factory workers, okay, my industrial plants. Okay. So here, first characteristic of modernity is industrialism, wherein the social relations implied in the extensive use of material power and machinery in all processes of production. So here, industrialism talks about the utilization of inanimate power sources and machinery to produce goods. So, dati guys, if you can remember, or your parents, even your grandparents, they used to utilize manual tools for domestic labors. For example, doing laundries, di ba? So, yung iba, nakapag labada pa sa mga riverbanks or sa mga sapa, but to some who are now living in the modern times, in a modern society, we are now using automatic washing machines. Okay, that is one of the key element or characteristic of modernity according kay Giddens. So from manual labor to automatic to a machine work, kumbaga. So for example, in the context or in the area of food production, so from raw materials to processed goods. So may mga malalaking machines that are being programmed by people who will do the working, okay, who will do the mixing, for example, sa food like baking. So yung machine na ang magmi-mix ng mga raw materials or raw ingredients. Tapos, pag natapos na yung process of production, meron ka nang ibebenta, meron na siyang finished product, kumbaga. Okay, so ano pa ba ang examples ng industrialism? Ang pag-improve ng technology, okay? AI, artificial intelligence, okay? Programmed computers out to replace people in factories due to their efficiency in making or accomplishing things at a faster rate compared to people. Okay, that's an example of industrialism as exemplified by Giddens. So another example is in the area of communication. So dati, we write letters. Okay, that will take days for the receiver to read, diba? Now, one click away na lang siya. So, matter of seconds or milliseconds even, depende on how strong your Wi-Fi is. Diba? So, that's an example of industrialism. So, education. So, dati, may blackboard, okay, may physical room, but right now, due to some circumstances, we have online class. Okay, that's an example of industrialism. The second characteristic of modernity, according to Giddens, is capitalism. Now here, capitalism refers to production system involving both competitive product markets and the commodification, or simply putting a price tag of labor power. So furthermore, it talks about production. So capitalism talks about production, business, kumbaga, where there is a private ownership of capital, okay, laissez-faire, property, less wage labor, and a class system derived from these characteristics. So remember the concept of laissez-faire wherein the government does not intervene so much in the business transaction of everyone. Okay, so capitalism also can categorize people. So may class system din siya as the effects of capitalism kasi nga nagkakaroon ng private ownership ng mga businesses. So according kay Karl Marx, which is isa sa mga idol ni Giddens, that's why naging second characteristics ng modernity ang capitalism is that in the modern society, nagkakaroon pa rin talaga ng class systems. So in the context of capitalism, we have the bourgeoisies and the proletariat. Now, the bourgeoisies are the capitalista. Okay? Sila yung mga owners ng corporations, ng big businesses. While the proletariats are the laborers. Okay? Sila yung mga workers. Which, sabi ni Giddens, hindi talaga mawawala in a modern society yung class system. The third key characteristics of modernity, key characteristic would be institutions of surveillance. Wherein here, it pertains to the massive increase of power and reach by institutions, especially in government. So here, the supervision of the activities of subject populations. May context ng political sphere. So from this one, it does not only pertains to the exclusive area of nation state interest, guys, but also purchasing or installing CCTVs anywhere. Kasi nga may political aspect ang institutions of surveillance wherein powerful ang government in monitoring the people, okay, that belong to their jurisdiction, kumbaga. Okay? So here, not only exclusive in purchasing or installing CCTVs, but also gaining weapons of mass destruction to protect the nation's interests and the people. So another example is, for example, PSA. Okay, so remember guys, if you can remember the time where may mga certain people na kakatok sa bahay nyo, okay, magtatanong about ilan kayo sa family, ilan ang lalaki, sino ang may trabaho, sino pa ang nag-aaral. That's census. And that is also an example of institutions of surveillance wherein the government will be able to monitor the demographics of the residents. Okay, kung ilan yung birth rate, mortality rate, ilan ang older adults sa Philippines, ilan ang mga babies, ilan pa ang mga estudyante. Which is a good thing because the government will be able to facilitate kung ano pa yung kailangan ng people niya. Okay. But at the same time, knowing Giddens, institutions of surveillance also pertains to war and protecting the nation's interest by advancing the military aspect of a country. Institutions of surveillance. Now, the fourth characteristic of modernity is dynamism. Now, according to Giddens, dynamism is the most evident characteristic of a modern society. So, here, dynamism is characterized as having vigorous activity and progress. So, hindi siya pa backwards, but pa forward. Okay? It is happening every single day, every second. In a modern society, life is not a predetermined path with limited options based on location, family, or gender. So totally different siya from the pre-modern society. It is a society full of possibilities, kumbaga. Kasi may endless opportunities for people to choose how to live their lives and who to be with. Okay, so the destiny of a person living in a modern society will not depend on his skin color, sa gender niya, or kung Asian ba siya or African American ba siya. Okay, so here, dynamism signifies an endless choices offered to people. So they can just travel, they can contact people from miles and miles away. Okay. So in conclusion, guys, dynamism as the most evident characteristic of modernity, the main point is we can choose where to live, where to travel, or how to live our lives. Basta, okay, so may basta. So basta, of course, you work on it. Diba? You strive for it. You have to earn it, kumbaga. Okay? Now, however, everything is subject to change. Okay? In a modern society, kasi nga dynamism siya, everything is subject to change. And changes happen much more rapidly than ever before in human history. So, every day, prone to change. Okay. So, yan lang yung isa sa mga disadvantages ng modernity kasi nga dynamic siya. It is ever-changing. It is not stable. Okay? It does not offer us the chance to get used to it. Okay? That's why we have trends. Diba? So, 1 week, ito ang trend. The next week or the next 2 weeks, iba na naman ang trend. Okay? So, kumbaga, ang hirap mabuhay sa isang panahon na palaging nag-change tapos hindi ka pa makasabay. Okay? That is why here, sabi ni Giddens, it is only right to be informed as possible and to be flexible as possible, okay, in the modern society since it is ever changing and it is not stable. So the next topic is social groups and social networks.